Follow the buzzer. Rest in peace. Woo! The best there is, the best there was, and the best ever will be. What you gonna do, brother? Hey, yo.
Can you see me now?
Strategy my Oklahoma ass.
Life sucks, and then you die.
Welcome to the JM Report. I'm your host, GoodOlJM. This is episode 67, coming to you from CSP Studios in Tampa, Florida, the birthplace of pro wrestling. And it is go-home week for Extreme Rules this Sunday night. Matter of fact, it's a busy weekend if you're a pro wrestling fan. You got AEW Fight for the Fallen. And, of course, the seemingly out of nowhere special event on the WWE Network that's not even a WWE event, but of Evolve and their 10th anniversary show airing live on the network. Now, I was just thinking about this on the way to the studio. How long was this a thing? Because really only this week, if you don't follow what's online and read newsletters or anything like that, you probably wouldn't even know what the hell is Evolve. Realistically, it's some sort of, although people will argue this, but it's a stomping ground, no pun intended, for WWE to seek out new talent, similar to NXT, although the majority of them are from independent promotions, go figure. Evolve, to many, is considered independent promotion. And again, seemingly out of nowhere, I'm just curious to see or find out how long was this a plan? Is it intentional to compete against AEW? Even though AEW Fight for the Fallen, it's not a pay-per-view. I mean, it's going to stream, yes, but it's not being offered as a pay-per-view. But I guess technically speaking, if you're going to air on a WWE network, that's not a pay-per-view either. So it kind of evens out that argument in a sense. But Fight for the Fallen has been announced for months. Probably as close to the beginning of this year, best to my knowledge. And many thought that, including myself, maybe coincidental. But at the same time, you can't help but to think, oh, what a shady move by WWE to draw away from the AEW crowd, because they're not a competitor. They're not competition yet. They're still growing. But just in case, let's kill that momentum because of the successful Double or Nothing pay-per-view and last year's All In, and of course the upcoming All Out in September. Yeah, chances are, and this is my opinion, AEW is basically run and supervised by a millionaire, multi-millionaire. I wouldn't say a billionaire like McMahon is going to be after September, but a very wealthy man nonetheless. And I don't see AEW, I don't see the Bucks or Cody or Kenny, even Brandy, taking advantage of the man, Tony Khan, to use all that resources, or all of the resources that may be available for the most part to, like, okay, what do you need for the show? Pyro? Yeah, let's have the 4th of July fireworks like they did on the Brooklyn Bridge. That was awesome, by the way. But I don't see them doing something like that. Not that they couldn't, not that they wouldn't, but I just don't see them doing that. Maybe later on, little by little, we start seeing changes. Maybe when they start running bigger arenas and have a capacity of closer to 20,000. I mean, their numbers now, attendance-wise, is impressive compared to WWE, who are still selling floor seats to this Sunday's Extreme Rules. So what does that tell you? But yeah, for now, until others really start coming forward, especially from the WWE side, which will more than likely never happen, but that's what shoot interviews are for. but that won't happen for years from now. Whoever's working behind the scenes today, July 12, 2019, the day before Evolve's 10th anniversary show airing on the network and AEW's Fight for the Fallen event, which is basically, for those who don't know, it's a show honoring those who have lost their lives, I should say, due to gun violence, and many of the families have been invited to the event for tomorrow. Of course, the fans there as well to show support. What's WWE's counter programming for this? An anniversary show that has absolutely nothing to do with them, rather than the fact that they're loaning talent, which is ironic, isn't it? Because if you're not in bed with WWE, there is no such thing as loaning talent over to, say, New Japan or Impact or AAA or CMLL, which I'll talk to in a bit with on sad news about that. It just boggles the mind. I can go on and on about this nonsense that WWE is trying to show what they think they are, what they want us to look at them as. This week, I'm not really going to cover it, but I'll make a mention of it. Their presence at the ESPY Awards. How long had they, among other things, had they been drilling bullshit into our heads that, no, we're not pro wrestling, we're sports entertainment. No, we're not a sport, we're sports entertainment. We make movies. So I guess because you couldn't be considered for an Emmy nomination, well, let's try the ESPYs. They'll like us. They've covered us before when they thought we were real. And then we unfortunately discovered the true secrets of the stunt granny, thanks NBC, and the cat's out of the hat, or out of the bag, or out of the closet, whatever the phrase is. Point being, you can't have it both ways, guys. You make these multi-million, I dare say, billion-dollar deals as if you are a legit, actual sport like football, baseball, NASCAR, who get similar deals, if not close to the $1 billion mark. Have 5-10-year contracts on a specific network, and all is good. All is well. Of course, on their end, they got to keep up revenue, income, sponsors, advertisement, and of course, ratings. I wonder if Fox put in an out clause, considering how when every time you move a wrestling program to a different network, not that Fox is not established, not that WWE is not established. They've shown that for years that they are, and they're probably worth every penny you spend. But look at the history of, say, TNN before they became Spike, before they became the Paramount Network. They literally went through 2 different wrestling companies before settling with TNA. And they lasted for as long as they did on that network. But all the shenanigans and politics and the bullshit that took place, not only backstage, but in between the wrestling company and the network that they're airing it on. And by the way, those 2 companies I'm referring to, first was ECW and then WWE, ironically. So did TNA not learn a lesson from that bit of history? Now, this is the first time, with the exception of maybe a handful of Saturday night main events that aired on Fox before Fox was the Fox that it is today. It's the first time they'll air on Fox with their SmackDown show later on this year. So which is it, WWE? Are you a sport? Are you a pro wrestling company? What is your product? Make up your damn minds. And who am I to speak the way I do? Well, I've been following you for decades. I probably just outed myself there. Follow the product for many years into my adult life. And purchasing many of their merchandises, and I still do it to this day. I have not attended a live event since Battleground, 2015? Out here in Tampa, ironically. When they asked for the public and the fans' help and support during their downtime, whether if it was the federal government coming after them, whether it's the Parents' Council, the the FCC or whomever it was at the time that was coming after WWE for reasons, their content, their not the TV rating of the numbers, but the rating of the show, or TV 14 and stuff like that. I was too young to even show support during the steroid trial, so couldn't help you there. And no, I am not a stockholder because I think even that's ridiculous. So I'm just like one of the millions of fans out there. And then maybe in their eyes, don't see that I've done much. Anyone that knows me will say otherwise. Anyone that's visited or seen my bedroom and how that's set up, and maybe one day I will when I show it. I don't know. That's a privacy issue. But since 1987, I've earned my badge. Hell, you guys just made me one of your top fans on your Facebook page. So I think I've earned it, where I could ask these questions as a fan, as a paying customer, to bring up questions, complaints, bring up issues where it does not make sense. And WWE will try their hardest to put out the most PR response that is available. And even then, it doesn't make sense because it won't sound like they're answering your question. Opportunities, I won't say opportunities are taken away from others. Again, they've been on TV for such a long time. They have no direction but to go up and maybe be offered the deals that they have been. And sure, they might still put out there, we're sports entertainment, but we're here at the ESPYs. We're sports entertainment, but we make movies, even though ours go straight to DVD or Blu-rays, and they absolutely suck. Don't believe me? Watch their Rotten Tomato scores or their IMDb pages and look up the scores there. As long as it doesn't have a current contracted WWE wrestler as the lead role, yeah, it's not going to be so well. Dwayne Johnson and Dave Bautista broke away, and they're having a tremendous success. I can't remember the last time, especially Dwayne Johnson, when it comes to movie trailers or an announcement of an upcoming movie, that whether he's the lead or supporting role. When was the last time you see his name underneath former WWE superstar The Rock, a.k.a. Dwayne Johnson? The same thing with Batista. They broke away from it. There have been times, especially in the beginning of their careers, some of the movies went to DVD and Blu-ray. One of them being, I believe, it was an independent movie, but I didn't see it until it got onto Netflix. It was Empire State with Dwayne Johnson. And I was stoked because it was filmed in my old neighborhood in Queens, New York. But point being that they're successful now. Batista was just on Jimmy Kimmel Wednesday night by himself, not with the cast of the Guardians of the Galaxy or any other cast member. It was just him promoting Stuber that comes out, I believe, tonight up against the Lion King. So before I continue with the news here, I don't want to go too much longer with this, but you can't have it both ways. You got to make up your damn minds of what you really are. We listen to the fans. Yeah, I'm glad to use that against us this past Tuesday, which I'll get into in a minute. But like I said, that speech, that promise, if you go back to December of 2018, the episode of Raw where it was Shane, it was Vince, it was Stephanie, it was Triple H, all four standing in the ring. In character, mind you. They weren't the person of Vince, Paul, Shane, and Stephanie. No, they were in character. The announcers refer to them into their character names. Mr. McMahon, Triple H. And go back and look at their expression on their faces. That was around the time they started doing damage control. Realizing that, yeah, Raw sucks. Your ratings are down. Your angles absolutely belong in a toilet. You can make all the changes you want, but put it this way. You ever seen that scene in Wreck-It Ralph? And Ralph and Penelope or Vanellope, they're trying to create a car for the race. And Ralph breaks the machine that helps you pick out the bad and good parts to create the car. So Ralph is WWE. Vanellope, unfortunately, she's the fan, or she represents the fans that don't follow the behind-the-scenes stuff, don't care about the rumors, don't care about the he said, she said nonsense, or follow or read up on newsletters. And Wreck-It Ralph or Wreck-It WWE, with all these changes they promise and they do, they still end up picking up the crap pieces, the crappy pieces when it comes to the writing, the storytelling, the delivery. It's no different than watching a movie where, okay, the storyline makes sense. I could see potential in this, but the delivery, because the director is not on top of their actors to say, no, don't do it that way, do it this way. Show more expression, show more emotion, show that you care. That's exactly what these people look like when they came out back in December. They couldn't care less. No more authority figures, but yet Shane is still around. No more automatic rematches for championships, but yet they find loopholes where the former champion can challenge the new champion into a match at the very next pay-per-view or at the very next night after the pay-per-view where they lost it from. New faces, yeah, right, somewhat. If they're not out with injury, or if you just show them maybe once or twice, the reaction for their debut was lackluster at best to their eyes, to Vince's eyes. Oh, they didn't pop like they did in NXT. And on top of that, the changes that they make to said characters, when they do, I guess, get promoted to the main roster. So far, at least in recent memory, the most successful one is Ricochet. Not because they made him the United States champion, but they, well, with the exception of the opening of his theme song, they didn't really make any changes to the man. He still wrestles the way he does, that he's always been. EC3, Lacey Evans, you're not going to tell me that Vince McMahon is not head over heels over this woman to be successful, but she's been botching matches left and right as of late. Heavy Machinery are only recently showing up their faces more and more on SmackDown. Lars Sullivan, it's a start and stop push with him. He had an anxiety attack. He didn't debut for months. Now that he finally did, he's injured. Will be out more than likely for the rest of the year. Well, there goes that story. Tommaso Ciampa, who was already injured, had to step away, get surgery. Even in the process of debuting Gargano. That was another stop because, again, injuries. Aleister Black was having a great time. He was on SmackDown and Raw every week for about 2 months, give or take. But because of the Ciampa and Gargano injuries, they had to fill in the void, so to speak. So they broke up the tag team of Black and Ricochet. After the draft, they locked up Aleister Black in the freaking closet, waiting for someone to knock him, get him out. Was finally answered this week, thank God. So, again, I really hate to beat this to the ground. I know I'm going about 20 minutes here, stating my opinion, but I felt like I needed to get this off my shoulders, off my chest. You can't have it both ways. You need to choose once and for all exactly what the hell you are. And I don't want to hear, oh, did you hear what Bruce Pritchard said? It's a cop-out. It's a cop-out because if the term or the name of professional wrestling is such a bad taste in the mind of Vince McMahon, because whenever he was in trouble with the federal government or local or state authorities or whatever was going on that put or gave pro wrestling a bad name, you know how many actors have been in trouble with the law, been arrested, committed crimes, or worse? Has Hollywood changed their names or their approach, or like, oh, we're not entertainment, we're visual, promotional, televisional, whatever cop. I mean, it's a cop out. Ever since that nonsense, ever since they've been trying to push this term sports entertainment, which I can wipe my ass with, it's bullshit. Because again, and I brought this up many a times to my colleagues. Hey man, every time you watch the pay-per-view Sunday night and you go to work the next morning in the office, and I know you got other co-workers that are fans, did you ever start the conversation saying or asking, hey, did you enjoy that sports entertainment pay-per-view last night? They're going to look at you so weird, they're going to throw the coffee in your face. Hey, did you catch wrestling that last night? Did you catch the WWF last night? That's how conversations with true wrestling fans are started. So again, you can't have it both ways. And yes, I can go on all day about this, but I got other stuff to get into, and an announcement actually, which I'll wait for towards the end of this episode in regards to another episode of Talking with JM. So let's get started with Monday Night Raw, the go-home show this week for this Sunday's Extreme Rules. Starting off with a mixed tag team elimination match. By the way, the elimination stipulation was added much later because we can't wrestle during commercials anymore. Becky Lynch, Raw Women's Champion, and her... Screw it, Becky's the one that wears the pants, so Becky's boy toy, Seth Rollins, the Universal Champion, versus Zelina Vega and Andrade. Which is funny, Vega would later on have an interview saying that she was so proud and honored to main event Raw. You didn't main event, you opened up the show. Anyway, and by the way, this being a mixed tag team match, it's only women against the women, the men against the men. So how do you justify when a member of a team is eliminated? Doesn't that also technically eliminate that same gender from the other team? Because you can't have man versus women, even though there have been interactions, but we have yet to see a man fight off or fight back versus a woman. I mean, yeah, there was Randy Orton at the Royal Rumble or with Nia Jax and whatnot, but last year, but yeah, it was unsettling then. It's unsettling now. And because it was Nia Jax physically being the biggest woman on the roster. So we can't have Randy Orton doing an RKO on Alexa Bliss, or Kevin Owens doing a stunner on, let's say, I don't know, Sasha Banks when she comes back. At that point, there'll be, and there's a lot of stuff going on this week that really grinding my gears. At that point, there's no point of a payoff. How many times did Stephanie smack around a male wrestler and never got her comeuppance, and we had to wait till all the way to the following WrestleMania? But by that point, she was already slapping around whomever she was in feud with because of Triple H, let's say Roman Reigns. But before that, she was smacking John Cena, smacking The Rock. Why go there? If the hero or the babyface is not allowed to triumph over this person because they're not of the same gender, and there'll probably more than likely be very bad repercussions because of it, why go there? So anyway, this match didn't make sense at all as far as the rules go. Vega's eliminated first, tapping out to the disarmor by Becky Lynch. And all of a sudden, Lacey Evans appears, causing a distraction, but we go to commercial anyway. Rollins nearly gets the Hurricanrana by Vega, who stuck around ringside. Rollins will block this, holding Vega upside down, and Becky Lynch will come across on the outside of the ring with a drop kick to the stomach. Match continues. Curve stomp later. Rollins wins with Becky Lynch, the mixed tag team elimination match. Go on stage. They're celebrating, holding up the belts, and we saw this coming a mile away. Lacey Evans returns with Baron Corbin attacking both Rollins and Becky Lynch. Rollins tried to fight off Lynch tried to fight off Baron Corbin, but he just stood there taking the forearm shots and elbows like they were powder puff. Evans again botched. She was off about a step and a half away from Lynch. Was trying to throw the women's right, but you see Lacey had to take a step forward and then deliver the women's rights, essentially knocking her out. So Rollins and Lynch are laid out on stage, giving the momentum fully to the heels heading into their Extreme Tag Team match this Sunday. So referees, agents checking in on the champions. Out comes Paul Heyman and just walks right by, straight to the ring, just to remind us that Brock Lesnar is still Mr. Money in the Bank, that he will cash in on either Kingston or Rollins at Extreme Rules for either the WWE or Universal Championship. So are we just going to assume these cash-ins will take place prior to their match? I mean, what if Joe wins? What if Corbin wins? So please don't. Is it because they're heels and Lesnar is a heel, he won't cash in on them? We've seen Joe versus Lesnar before, and I thought it was a good match. Great balls of fire. I never thought Joe was a full-fledged face at any time. He was just too much of a badass to take him seriously as a babyface. And when he challenged Lesnar, he choked him out a couple of times. All that momentum builds just for one F5 and you're done. So I don't know, being Heyman, that is, being the executive director, did he accidentally give the results away that Kingston and Rollins will retain the titles, and after the match, Lesnar will come down and cash in? Who knows? Thankfully, we get our only 2 out of 3 falls match in a 6-man tag team match. The Usos and The Miz take on Elias and Raw Tag Team Champions, the Revival. The Revival win the first fall over The Miz after Shattered Machine. The Miz gets some payback in the second fall, delivering a skull crusher finale. And in the third and final finale of falls, the baby faces, win the match after a barrage of super kicks from the Usos and a body splash off the top rope onto Scott Dawson. And the Usos get the third and final fall for the win. We see 24/7 champion Drake Maverick and his wife Renee Michelle looking for a place to get it on, I guess. Yeah, in a backstage, in an arena backstage where there's a wrestling event going on, that's where you want to consummate the marriage. So Drake screams out that he's about to get it on with his wife, only for the 24/7 roster to hear this and begin to chase Drake. And the chase begins. It's at this point Shane McMahon and Drew McIntyre are roaming around backstage and speaking to employees of the arena. You got a beer guy, you got a janitor, you got a custodian. They're basically looking for a tag team partner for Roman Reigns for the main event later on, as the stipulation in this match was Shane and Drew will choose a tag team partner for Roman Reigns. As predicted and first called by the Wrestling Observer, Rey Mysterio did make his return here and issued an open challenge to anyone in the back. So we're just going to forget the fact that Samoa Joe beat the snot out of you, forcing you to surrender the United States title. And I guess we just move on. Yeah, I guess Pritchard is right. Just move on. Move on. Suck it up. Life goes on. Life isn't fair. Just move on. I don't think me and someone like him could ever be acquaintances. So Mysterio, again, put out an open challenge, and who answers the call is Bobby Lashley. No selling absolutely any injuries from the week before, being speared or tackled through an LED board, seemingly being electrocuted in the process. And yeah, just it's like swiping dirt off your shoulders, I guess. Never happened. Mysterio gets squashed. He gets squashed by Lashley. Okay, if you want to keep Lashley looking strong heading into Extreme Rules against for his match against Braun Strowman, I get that. You still could have dominated Mysterio the way he did, and maybe in your anger and your frustration because you were thrown through a LED board and nearly killed yourself, kayfabe, nearly killed yourself. You were taken to the hospital and you're too proud because no man should be going to the hospital. It's just a flesh wound. They could have gone for a DQ finish because of Lashley's frustration and anger. Maybe even a count out. Again, still looking strong and dominant in your performance. Nope, screw that. Kill Ray. Pin him 1, 2, 3. Thanks for coming back. We get no explanation from AJ Styles for his actions a week ago against Ricochet. We do finally get the one-on-one match that we were denied as fans last week as No Way Jose took on Cesaro. Yeah, nothing to this match. It was very short. In a combination of the swing and a sharpshooter, Cesaro wins. So most of us got this wrong where Maria Kanellis was gonna take time off because she's pregnant. Depending who you ask, it was probably Becky Lynch who did it because she said, "You're welcome" on a Twitter feed. So here her husband Mike was trying to find out what it is that he can do to make up for whatever upset his wife. But we'll check on them later. R-Truth and Carmella are looking for Drake Maverick. And off in the distance, we see the 24/7 roster chasing Drake. Carmella then jumps on Truth's back and give chase in the wrong direction. It was funny at first, but you think about it, wait a minute, why would he run in the wrong direction? The enhancement team, I guess, of Colin and Devon Justin taking on the Viking Raiders in another squash match, less than a minute. They did short work by the Raiders here. But after the match, the said 24/7 roster chased Drake Maverick into the arena as Drake hits the ring, bypasses the Raiders, but unfortunately the 24/7 roster run into the Raiders and a bit of a brawl breaks out. We once again see R-Truth and Carmella. They run out, but they kept on running in another direction from where Drake Maverick was going. Luke Gallows went one-on-one with Ricochet in a non-title match. Gallows dominated for the most part, and all it took was a simple roll-up for Ricochet to win the match. AJ Styles gets on the microphone and mentions what Ricochet said right before his match, that he could take on all members of the club anytime, anywhere. So AJ Styles, I guess he has authority power now, makes another match right there and there. Ricochet versus Carl Anderson. And I thought it was a pretty good match for what it was with the time given. But Ricochet hits the 630 for the win. And we got a copy and paste here from last week as all three members of the club beat the crap out of Ricochet, leaving him laid out. Maverick finally reunites with his wife, seemingly to leave the arena, or was about to. They pass by a few crates, and Truth with a referee pops out of one, and Carmella pops out of another one. And the referee jumps on Truth's back, and the chase is back on. But this is the last time we will see of these guys for a while. Shane and Drew offer a janitor Gary, I believe his name was, $5,000 to team up with Roman Reigns and be his partner and to wear a mask. That was kind of cryptic. I mean, as if the rest of the show wasn't, but yeah, wear a mask just in case. What if Gary's family was going to be proud of him stepping into the ring? Yeah, Gary was seen to be, middle age, possibly close to retirement in 2 days. But here's an opportunity for him to step into the ring and main event a Monday Night Raw, but wear a mask. We get to our first of 2 Beat the Clock Challenge matches as SmackDown Women's Champion on Raw, Bayley defeated Sarah Logan in 4 minutes and 32 seconds. And it was up to Nikki Cross to beat that time versus Dana Brooke, which he does with a swinging neck breaker. And the stipulation here was to pick a stipulation for the SmackDown Women's Championship match at Extreme Rules. So, what's it going to be? The event is called Extreme Rules. Okay, so maybe a kendo on a stick. Kendo on a stick. Wow. A kendo stick on a pole match, chairs match, tables match, any kind of a match. Nope, Nikki Cross instead chooses to align herself with Alexa Bliss, making it 2-on-1 for the SmackDown Women's title. And that she will be proud to be co-champions with Alexa Bliss, who no-showed Raw and SmackDown this week, by the way, which I will also get into later. We check backstage with the Kanellis family, and Maria yet again roasts her husband, saying that he may not even be the father of the child. So, last week Maria was roasting her husband then, kayfabe, and that he's not man enough. Maybe it should be Becky and get impregnated by her. This week, back to me. This poor child has yet to be born and is already basically involved in a custody battle. Where's Maury Povich? I hope he's on standby. So I got to ask, ironically, since Paul Heyman is the executive director of Monday Night Raw, are we looking at another Beulah McGillicuddy, Tommy Dreamer, or Kimona Wanalea angle again? Are Maria and Becky going to be lovers at some point? I mean, there was a time in this show, actually, that Corey Graves was asking, hey, if you guys lose your titles at Extreme Rules, are you going to break up? Speaking to Rollins and Lynch. The pieces are there. I'm not saying any of this to make sense, to fulfill and satisfy my sick head, but would you be surprised if something like that happens? You got Maria. Yeah, I'll admit she wasn't the best technical wrestler in the world, and when she was in the ring, I mean, she bumped around here and there. I honestly think her best in-ring work was in Ring of Honor. But with WWE, and as she mentioned, she wanted to end her career with WWE, hence why she resigned how she did. As sort of a way of saying thank you. And I started with you, I'm going to end with you. And I thought that was a nice gesture. Depending who you ask, the timing couldn't have come in a horrible place as it did, because when resigned, again, we don't know if it was already a thing. Was she already pregnant when she resigned, or was it after? But to me, WWE is getting their money's worth, because she's getting TV time now, and all she has to do is just sit there. The easiest job in the world? No, not really, because you still got to act, you still got to perform. Not physically like a Sasha Banks or a Bayley or an Ember Moon, no, but at least they're doing something. And if Heyman, I'm sure he does, but as far as the delivery in this particular case, and to keep you interested long enough to see where this thing goes, because seeds are being planted, so to speak. You got roasted by your wife a week ago. Now she's saying he may not be the father. So what's next? mean, it's not as exciting as the Firefly Funhouse that's been off the air for a couple of weeks now, but it's something. Like, okay, so who's Maria in kayfabe? Who's Maria been sleeping around with if this is the case? Moving on. Well, in the main event, Roman Reigns does team up with Gary under a mask, the janitor, hobbling and limping down the rampway. McIntyre and Shane McMahon make their appearance. And for the first half, Roman is dominated by the heels. And then McIntyre decides to throw in, and I mean throw, over the wall, Gary into the ring. And seemingly out of nowhere, after giving the impression that a middle-aged man was just thrown into a ring hard by a 6'5" man, he comes out with these athletic, acrobatic flips and springboards out of nowhere, hitting knees, elbows, forearms. I guess his special meter filled up and unfortunately ran out after being hit by a Claymore kick. Shane gets the pin to win, and back in the ring we see Roman Reigns assist Gary, but he starts removing the mask to find out that it's Cedric Alexander that's been under the mask this entire time. Or was he? No, it was Alexander, at least in the ring. Or maybe he was in makeup when they were speaking to Gary backstage before they offered him $5,000. I wonder if he took that money. I would have taken it. Win or lose? Shoot. Main event Raw with Roman Reigns? Shoot. So it's odd, even though it's been already reported that Cedric is expected to be on Raw this coming week. Perhaps, and this is my opinion, to perhaps either push him to main event status of sorts or to push Shane and Drew back down a peg to mid-card status. Because clearly this angle has run its course with Roman Reigns and McIntyre. I mean, you're facing The Undertaker too at Extreme Rules. Where else can Shane and Roman Reigns go? Where else can McIntyre and Reigns go? We all thought that would have been a great, at least a payoff match back at WrestleMania. So here we are 2-3 months later. It's still ongoing. But then again, Roman Reigns has been off television for about, 2-3 weeks, it seems like. He's been promoting Hobbs and Shaw. Of course, gearing up for the SB appearance this week, which I believe, I didn't watch it, but I think he won the greatest moment or whatnot of Monday Night Raw when he made his comeback to announce that his leukemia is in remission. So, yeah, I mean, what is next for Roman Reigns? Is this where they fit in Bray Wyatt? Who knows? Is McIntyre and Cedric Alexander going to have a long-term angle? Who knows? But they got a lot of explaining to do. Over on SmackDown, we see Dolph Ziggler arrive to the arena, who was about to be interviewed, but only to get interrupted by Kevin Owens, who pulls up in his rent-a-car, which looked like... I first thought it was a Mustang, but no, I'm going to say it's a Charger. Sorry, I'm not a car guy. I just know how to turn them on and off and drive them, but I do appreciate an amazing-looking muscle car. So Owens sees that Ziggler's being interviewed and begins honking his horn. Intentionally, of course. He gets out of his car, and Ziggler and Owens get into a verbal argument that turns into a physical altercation, and we see a few 205 Live guys try to break it up. Out comes Shane McMahon. And mind you, this is considered to be earlier in the day, long before the event of SmackDown even started. So when Shane comes out, he tells Kevin Owens to go home. You're done for the night. So this drastically changes the main event of SmackDown, where we were supposed to see Kevin Owens take on Dolph Ziggler. So maybe they're saving it for later. Obviously, maybe, who knows. Back in the arena, we do get our usual opening for SmackDown. The announcers do their intros. And out of the blue comes Kevin Owens through the crowd, grabs the microphone, and does a worked shoot promo. And if you don't think that it's not a worked shoot promo, they will not have aired clips of this on their social media pages and on their YouTube channel. So Kevin Owens grabs the microphone, pointing out everything that well, I've discussed earlier, a lot of the fans that have been voicing their opinions about the speech made back in December about listening to the fans with no authority figure, and that has been nothing but the Shane McMahon show ever since. Well, he's not lying. They pretty much took all the Twitter comments, all the tweets, and the writing team put all of that into a creative script, I guess. And there's no surprise, and you really shouldn't be that surprised either, knowing that Eric Bischoff is running SmackDown, and knowing his history of being executive producer of many recent reality shows that if you don't read the credits, you probably didn't even know Bischoff was a part of it, and kind of giving that feel of blurring the lines between reality and fiction and maybe kayfabe. Well, I've always known kayfabe's been dead. They've been trying to resurrect it, so it's kind of on life support right now. But at the same time, you want to take it for what it is. It's like, all right, but wait a minute. You know what I mean? You're still left asking questions, which, at the end of the day, it's a form of attention. And that's exactly what they want, WWE. They want you to tweet about it. They want you to hashtag it because it's something to discuss and argue. What was that about? Well, you got to tune in next week or in this case, this Sunday's pay-per-view to find out I guess the fate of Kevin Owens. So when I mentioned about, what's next for Shane and McIntyre and Cedric Alexander, that's on the Raw side. We know where Shane, maybe McIntyre is going to go on the SmackDown side because you got Kevin Owens there. And it's very interesting that Owens didn't appear on Raw this week. I guess they ran out of temporary passes, but who knows? So Shane McMahon comes out. He cuts off the microphone, not once but twice. Owens tried to continue his parade on the headsets of the announcers, dropping a few names such as Asuka, Kairi Sane, Shinsuke Nakamura, and among others, of them not being on TV as of late, which is true. Although at least some of these names do appear later on in the show. Shane calls for security and Owens runs off towards the crowd, and we won't see him until later on. In a pretty good non-title match of Finn Balor taking on Shinsuke Nakamura for the first time in WWE, and I like how the announcers that is like for the first time ever. They might as well say and make us believe that they didn't wrestle anywhere else against each other but WWE, and we all know it's bullshit. But here, Nakamura showed dominance over Finn Balor. Tried to get the counter victory a couple of times, which didn't make sense. That's not very Nakamura-like or Nakamura-like. So Nakamura hits a Kinshasa outside the ring. Balor barely makes it back before the 10 count, only to be greeted by another Kinshasa in the ring. Only this time, Shinsuke decides to pin Balor and get the 3 count. So they will not get a rematch at Extreme Rules, at least has it been announced. Could they add it on later? Sure, but it'll be way too late. They have nearly a dozen matches as it is. We don't know which one will be on the kickoff, but it doesn't matter. That's a dozen matches for nearly a 4-hour pay-per-view. So my best guess will be SummerSlam to start off, or I should say continue the feud as Balor would try to get his payback. Shane McMahon announces that it will be Ziggler taking on Roman Reigns instead in the main event. And we get into a contract signing back in the ring with Bayley and Nikki Cross to make this stipulation legal, I guess, or official. Again, no Alexa Bliss. But once again, Nikki Cross vows to be co-champion with Alexa Bliss. And this segues into a match with Carmella taking on Nikki Cross. Nikki gets the win, keeping her strong heading towards Extreme Rules, now involved in the title match itself. We get, this is another one that pissed me off. We get the women's tag team champions, the Iconics. They weren't the ones that pissed me off. I love the Iconics. But they're a scene coming out of their dressing room, which I don't think it was, because if you go back and notice that there's one of those little signs that tell you what kind of room it is, it's covered up with black tape or maybe electrical tape, but it's covered up. So for all we know, that could have been the janitor's closet. That could have been, or actually could have been the boiler room or the electrical room. But it just caught my eye right away. That's the first thing that caught my eye, just as the Iconics were opening the door to come out. So anyway, they're in the hallway, and they're confronted by the Kabuki Warriors, Kairi Sane and Asuka, and Paige, who is their mouthpiece. So they're basically there to cash in, for lack of a better word, their title match that was promised by the Iconics had the Kabuki Warriors defeated them in Japan a couple of weeks ago, which they did. So now they're looking for their title match. So, of course, in Iconic fashion, see what I did there, they're coming out with excuses from left and right. Billie Kay apparently was feeling under the weather and has the mad cow swine flu. I think if such a thing existed, I think she'd be dead. But this is kayfabe, right? Paige gets upset, starts calling the Iconics cowards, and then slaps Billie Kay. Now, here's my other part of my argument from earlier about Stephanie slapping people and getting no comeuppance. Paige, okay, yes, she is a now former in-ring competitor. She was forced into retirement. Maybe a chance for a comeback. We don't know. We don't know what her status is. But for the sake of argument, let's say Paige never returns to the ring. Will Billie Kay ever get her chance to pay back from being embarrassed and being slapped in the face by someone who can't really defend herself? Does it build drama? Sure. But why couldn't it have been one of the Kabuki Warriors to do this? They're just standing there. Either they're pissed off from what they hear, or all smiles ear to ear when Paige slaps Billie Kay. So unless, and we'll probably get a better indication if something like this happens. So unless the Iconics corner Paige at some point, maybe off screen the beatdown happens and Paige gets wheeled away in a neck brace, or Paige is able to take maybe one bump in the ring in order for at least Billie Kay to get her payback. Because that's the kind of heels they are. Yeah, yes, they're entertaining, they're funny. On television, they're supposed to be obnoxious, annoying, coward-like. But they do have an aggression side. We've seen this. You piss them off enough, they'll come after you and rip your hair off. So why should this be any different? That would be a great payoff. I mean, you smack me in the face. All right, I'll see you after the pay-per-view. Or maybe I'll see you next week on SmackDown. You would expect payback. But because, I can't touch you because you have a broken neck, or you're not medically cleared. But and that's the other thing. You're not medically cleared to compete in the ring, but yet you're allowed to go smack people around. What sense does that make? So, yeah. In order for this to make any kind of sense, at least in my eyes, Paige deserves a slap back. And I'm okay if they do it off screen, but at least storyline wise, yeah, she got her ass whipped. And it makes sense. Otis of Heavy Machinery, along with Xavier Woods and Daniel Bryan, are involved in a triple threat match shortly after a tag team summit to build up towards their triple threat tag team match for the SmackDown tag team titles at Extreme Rules. Otis, at one point, showed an impressive spot. I mean, we all know this guy's as strong as a bear, maybe stronger. Woods and Bryan were attempting a double suplex on the big man. Now, we've seen this before, but rarely do we see it like this, where the bigger man counters and he has two guys under his arm in a suplex position. And he counters it. Not only does he counter it, but he holds them up. It was up to Bryan and Woods to keep the balance, but it was long enough, and Bryan unfortunately started leaning a little bit, so Otis had no choice but to drop maybe sooner than expected, but that was impressive. Both these guys might be considered cruiserweights to a degree, even though they're about, especially Xavier Woods, he's over by maybe 15 pounds. Brian is either hit or miss at times, depending what he ate for lunch. But that's nearly 460 pounds over your shoulders of man for a few seconds to be held up there and then double suplex them. That was amazing. Hats off to Otis. And a high five for Boot. And Otis was victorious after delivering a one-man compactor onto Xavier Woods. So heavy machinery, but all the momentum heading into their tag team title match this Sunday. Fire and Desire of Sonya Deville and Mandy Rose run into Ember Moon and challenge her to a tag team match for next week, as long as Ember Moon finds a tag team partner. So essentially we have two potential returns for next week. Nikki Cross suggested at one point to Bayley that she might want to bring someone to watch her back at ringside during a 2-on-1 match at Extreme Rules. Here we're hearing Ember Moon should find a tag team partner, so either one could be Sasha Banks. I think it's time. I think Nia Jax is too far away from a return, still rehabbing, as she's been tweeting out the past week. But it will be interesting to see who ends up showing up for Ember Moon's partner. We finally find out who knocked on Aleister Black's door last week, and we have a split screen. On the left side, we have Aleister Black awaiting the arrival of this mysterious person. Door opens, man walks in with a suit, paces back and forth for a little while to finally sit down. Camera pans up a little bit, and it's Cesaro, mouthpiece and all. These two will have a match at Extreme Rules 1-on-1. Now, on paper, this is beckoned to be an amazing match. We'll see what happens, because if anyone has read up or followed up on a recent article involving Kenta, the former Hideo Itami, who grew very frustrated towards the end of his run with WWE, not allowed to show off his wrestling skills, or was told to tone it down, which absolutely made no sense. And whoever told him that, whoever made that decision, they should be slapped in the face. Maybe not by Paige, but by someone with a frying pan. Another question is asked to Shelton Benjamin about the pay-per-view. Looks around, smiles, and the camera zooms behind him. I don't know where this is going, but okay. Kobe Kingston is interviews, and he says that Samoa Joe has been the toughest challenge yet since becoming WWE champion heading into Extreme Rules. And we get to the main event. Dolph Ziggler versus Roman Reigns. Just when things were going well for Roman Reigns, Drew McIntyre, who was ringside, pulls Ziggler out of the ring. And Shane McMahon, who was doing commentary, drops his headset, runs around to the other side. Roman Reigns does a flying leap over the top rope, landing on McIntyre and Ziggler. Shane runs back into the ring, only to be stunned, literally, by Kevin Owens, who ran back into the ring, gives a stunner and runs back out. Ziggler slides back into the ring. Roman Reigns on the upper side as well, delivers a spear and gets the pinfall. And they literally got all of this in time, as right after during the 3 count, the logo of the copyright, all rights reserved, whatever, appeared in the corner of the screen as SmackDown went off the air. So they barely got all of this in the nick of time. So, hey, you guys just can't miss your go-home cues. I mean, when the ref says go home, that means that's coming from the big boss. That's not the referee saying go home. That's the man saying go home. So, how did Raw and SmackDown perform this week? Well, according to Showbuzz Daily, the Raw viewership dropped to an average 2.3 this week compared to last week's 2.4. Makes you wonder and ask what happened there. Over on SmackDown, this week's show saw a 1.853 compared to last week's 1.890. Now, people are saying, well, it was the same week, or at least the same night as far as SmackDown goes, because of the All-Star game. Maybe. But again, we always see throughout the year sporting events compete with each other. And the ratings are what the ratings are. My argument is, and I'm not sure if they've done this before, but would Major League Baseball broadcast on their very next game, post All-Star game, brag about the ratings that they beat Monday Night Raw, or have a temper tantrum complaining about the low ratings for whatever game, whichever game, because a playoff is happening for a World Cup, or there's a preseason game in hockey. They know what it's all about as far as competition goes. Like, okay, part of their audience is not interested in our sport, but they'll watch theirs and vice versa. So I don't want to hear or know about any more complaints that, it was the All-Star game. No, it was Monday night or Tuesday night football. No. There's a difference between people choosing what they want to see and just tuning out because, as of late, despite whatever changes, your product sucks. It is what it is. This week on NXT, Io Shirai was booed by the crowd from her actions from the previous week after the NXT Women's Championship cage match against Shayna Baszler. Unfortunately, Io Shirai attacked Candice LeRae out of frustration after the match, and this week we were expecting to hear some sort of explanation. Well, she kept it simple. She doesn't need any friends, and she doesn't need us, the fans. Drops the mic and walked away. Could have been any simpler than that. Velveteen Dream was giving a press conference and was asked who was he going to face next. Dream says he didn't approve that question, so he moves on. Katie asked if Dream would respond to Roderick Strong's challenge, and Velveteen Dream says Strong hasn't done enough to deserve a title shot. And Dream walks away, ending the press conference. Damian Priest took on Blanco Loco. Priest kicks Loco in the head, tossing a vertical suplex by Priest. Priest lands 2 axe bombers, a cyclone kick followed by a reckoning by Priest, and gets the win. In the breakout tournament match, Jordan Miles took on Boa. At the end, we see a butterfly suplex for a near fall by Boa. Miles fires up and lands multiple strikes. A discus destructo by Miles hits the Midnight Star and gets the win. It is official. Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows have signed a multi-year deal, about 5 years, with the WWE this past week. Also with a significant raise. Others have reported that it was done earlier this week, but sources noted that they didn't even receive the contract until this past Monday. The Good Brothers have been on TV for the past several weeks, but for the first time, this happened in a while, that they've been involved in a significant storyline involving AJ Styles. But, an argument could have been made had they been involved with a storyline without AJ Styles. But I guess this is what negotiations are all about. No one is going to convince me that this significant raise, and no numbers were mentioned as far as how much that was and how much was the new 5-year deal for the Good Brothers. But no one can convince me otherwise that all these new renewed contracts, these re-signees, are being offered a raise, offered a much bigger salary, and probably even an extra signing bonus to prevent them from jumping to New Japan or AEW. But they're not real competition, right? They're not a threat, right? they were a real sport, if pro wrestling was a real sport, there would be such a thing as trades, or what they used to do in the old days when the NWA was huge, to have, for example, and it was mostly Ric Flair, the NWA World Heavyweight Champion, go to different territories and compete there against the very best of that promotion. Of course, NWA would have the final say, and it was always, like maybe 8 out of 10 times, closer to 9 out of 10 times, Ric Flair will be victorious in retaining the NWA title. Of course, nowadays, everything has to be owned. Everything has to be created in the mind of the madman that is Vince McMahon. If it's not copyrighted by his company, or again created by their own, they'll just come up with something else, give you a different name, or just assassinate your last name. Now you're my intellectual property. And no, you cannot compete for other people. It's been somewhat backed off a little bit, but for smaller promotions like Evolve, WWN, WXW, among others, Shine. But for a bigger stage, so to speak, no disrespect to those said companies, but these other companies would be on national television, would be on pay-per-view, and more money's made there. More money is generated there. No way would Vince want his intellectual property, whether it's your real name or not, to jump over there and him not get a piece of the pie. Hell no. Gallows and Anderson joined Jinder Mahal, Mike and Maria Kanellis, and several other WWE superstars, stretching out their contracts. And who knows, be interesting to see who will be the first one to decline. Yeah, recently we've seen Shawn Spears, Kenta. They weren't offered extensions. They left. Screw this. And you know what? I respect them more for not being lured back, or lured like, hey, here's more money. Well, and for all we know, these talents could have been really slick. I was like, well, I'll stay if they offer me more money. I mean, it's still for the money. At the end of the day, it's for the money. If I'm winning $500,000 a year, well, you know what? If they want me to stay so badly and not have me jump when my contract expires, I'm not going to sign that no-compete clause. I need to make, my money. Got to pay the bills. All right, so going from $500,000 a year, make me $750,000 a year with a sign-in bonus. I'll stay. Oh, you're good. With the money they're making now, these new recently re-signees, which is probably not a word, but chances are, long before the halfway mark even gets here, their houses will be fully paid off, and all they got to worry about is tax property. Oh, property taxes, whatever. Batista sat down with Chris Jericho recently for his Talk with Jericho podcast and pointed out an interesting fact, that originally Batista wanted his match with Triple H at WrestleMania to be a Hell in a Cell match. But Vince shot it down. Obviously, we didn't get it. But Batista said because of the pay-per-view, didn't want a Hell in a Cell. I think that's what makes it great. You have a Hell in a Cell that's not a pay-per-view. We're two older guys. We haven't wrestled in a long time, and we needed the drama. And we have already got the history. So we just needed the violence. We planned to meet up in NXT to train, he and Triple H, but we ended up just talking. I took one of the guys who was up there, one of the trainees, bumped around with him a little bit, and got into the ring and have some time to basically remove any ring rust. Triple H and Batista would have another conversation after the fact. He ended up by saying they didn't have any specific plans until they met up in New York City for WrestleMania. Triple H told Batista that they are very familiar with each other and were going to play it safe at Mania. Triple H also said, we've been in the ring enough. We'll plan it out. We'll talk about it. We'll go to Mania. We'll do it there. So it sounds like even Triple H wasn't interested in having a Hell in a Cell match at Mania against Batista. Even Vince gave the go-ahead because let's play it safe. Randy Orton, if you noticed, has been off TV for some time. For several weeks, as a matter of fact. And thanks to a exclusive report from Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful.com, he writes, Fightful Select has learned that Randy Orton has been dealing with somewhat of a neck injury, which was elevated last week. Orton hurt his neck during a match with Aleister Black at a live event. Though the injury wasn't serious, Orton was given amp time off so the injury could heal. So that explains that. We were wondering what kept Orton off of TV. And the last time we did see him, it was rumored that he was dealing with an injury. Little did we know it would be something like this. But I guess he just needed to get through his last match, which was against Triple H, I believe, at Super Showdown, Parts Unknown. And pretty much, if my timeline adds up, that was the last time we saw Randy Orton in the ring. No word on a return date, but he has been healing up pretty well. No word of any surgery either from Fightful.com. Maria and Mike Kanellis also confirming that they have re-signed with WWE. Maria took to Twitter to explain, as I mentioned earlier, but here's her extended quote. WWE was where I started, and it's where I want to complete my career. And when they came to the table with the opportunity to have a family and a career, it sealed the deal. People think they know everything, but it's all in the details. Well, think about it. As much, and I'll admit this, especially from the beginning of this episode, for as much shit I've given WWE, there are opportunities financially and other opportunities such as being on television and maybe kind of that one day a Hollywood producer is flipping through channels. And Maria has done a couple of independent movies. One even where her character was trying to get the attention of her boyfriend, who has his head buried in video games, and well, just imagine what she did to get his attention, and it's all on screen. Anyway, the producer flipping through channels and comes across Maria. Oh, I would love to have her as an extra or maybe a supporting role or playing a smaller part as the lead sister or cousin or something like that. It's all about presentation, and in most cases, and depending where you stand on this, unfortunately, it goes on looks as well. So Maria does have an opportunity here. So does her husband, but only recently has Mike been getting a little bit more of TV time if you don't follow 205 Live. But at the end of the day, that's all what's about, opportunity. And to be financially secured, she has all that and then some. Just a matter of time before what her next step would be after she has her second child and what happens then, because there'll be like another 4 years left on that contract. So will that be the end of Maria after she gives birth? I mentioned Shawn Spears earlier, the former Ty Dillinger. At first was scheduled to appear at the Limitless Wrestling today, a matter of fact. But according to the Facebook post from the owner, Randy Carver, AEW has pulled Spears from the event. Quoting, AEW has pulled Shawn Spears from our event this Friday in Portland for a video shoot, despite Limitless having an agreement with Shawn before his new contract was signed. The Limitless Wrestling owner goes on to write on his post, unfortunately, the wrestling industry continuously changing and new contracts arising, independent wrestling companies like Limitless will get the shit end of the stick in scenarios like this. Our job is always to be upfront and provide the best show possible for the wrestling fans in the world. I guess someone in AEW saw this and had a change of heart, or who knows what really happened, but the show's back on. And an update of Limitless Wrestling has announced that Shawn Spears is now cleared and will appear tonight at their event. And they posted on Twitter this time. We've got some outstanding news to share. At AEW has now cleared at Perfect 10N Shawn Spears to appear and participate at the 2019 Vacationland Cup this Friday in Portland. We can't thank AEW enough for approving this one day ahead of their upcoming event in Jacksonville. That event, of course, being Fight for the Fallen. Kota Ibushi had a hard-hitting match against Kenta during the New Japan Pro Wrestling's Dallas G1 Climax, Day 1. Unfortunately, I've missed the event. I do have it DVR'd off of Access TV, which broadcast it live. Unfortunately, I had so much going on. Plus, some of it has to do with my announcement that I will make later on at the end of the show. And by the time I bring it up here, it will be yesterday's news, basically. So I won't be able to cover it. But Ibushi suffered a nasty-looking ankle injury, and it swelled up and bruised after the match, sharing a few photos on his Twitter account. Yeah, it doesn't look good. It doesn't look broken, but it's really nasty. It is swollen. It's a very bruised black and blue ankle. Kota Ibushi. He shared that he was able to walk 100 steps on Tuesday and hopes to walk another 200 on Wednesday. He says he won't give up. He's currently scheduled to work a 6-man tag team match this Saturday and in his second G1 match this Sunday versus Evil. Interesting to see how they would pull this off if Ibushi's not able to go physically. There have been some speculations in the past few months concerning Alberto El Patron, formerly known as Alberto Del Rio in WWE, who has a senior role in Combate Americas, that's his MMA promotion, about El Patron returning to the cage. Now, that return has been confirmed by CEO Campbell McLaurin, who has revealed that El Patron will be going back to MMA versus Tito Ortiz at a future event. The last time Tito Ortiz had a match, it was against Chuck Liddell in a losing effort under the Golden Boy MMA umbrella. El Patron, on the other hand, who has a 9-5 professional mixed martial arts record, but he hasn't fought since 2010 in a losing effort against Yamamoto Hanshi. Take that as you will, but I guess when you have that itch, that bug that says, hey, get back into the ring, get back into the cage, you still got it. Either way, these guys are going to make a little bit of money, but of course you make more when you win. And of course, there was this little incident after a Blink-182 and Lil Wayne concert this past Tuesday night involving Joey Janela and the former Enzo Amore. If you haven't seen the video yet, well, it's just, it looked like it might have been picked up after the fact. Janela put out his version of a council took place. And they might have picked up the video after a altercation of sorts of the physical kind. Joey Janela said, not a work. Janela approached Enzo Amore, who slapped his hand away, and things escalated from there. Janela would say, I saw the dude and walked up to him and said, hi, I'm Joey Janela at the Blink-182 show. And we proceeded to have, I'm not Lennox Lewis, to have the shittiest fist fight of the year. I'm not a pussy, but we had fun. While it may be the first time the two had a physical altercation, they've clashed before on social media. because that's where all fights begin nowadays. The two had issues back in April after Janela called out Enzo for making a mockery of the business and challenged him to a fight under GCW's Bloodsport banner. Enzo added fuel to the fire by tagging the post with the caption, "Dick riding ain't no form of transportation." I guess certified G's can come up with their own shit talking that makes absolutely no sense. Of course, if you read too much into it, you might get a better idea, but yeah. Anyway. Janela, last I heard, was with AEW. Omori, the former Omori, supposed to have a deal of sorts with Ring of Honor, but who really knows at this point where this is going to end up? Maybe it is a work for all we know. And again, there haven't been any other video releases of the incident. And maybe that's done intentionally by design. But time will tell, as most of these stories do. Jun Akiyama has resigned from his position as president of All Japan Pro Wrestling, according to Tokyo Sports. Akiyama has held the title of president of All Japan for over 5 years. But back on June 1st, the promotion was described or reported as a slump. The company, however, will move forward and focus on more in-ring work rather than the numbers. I mentioned the ESPYs earlier, and quite a bit of, if you've been following the story between UFC, Brock Lesnar, Daniel Cormier, then you probably would have found this a little bit humorous. But Triple H, Stephanie, and the UFC World Heavyweight Champion Daniel Cormier crossed paths on the red carpet. And they were being interviewed, or Cormier was being interviewed by ESPN. And he was talking about how WWE took Brock Lesnar from him and said that maybe he will follow him over there to WWE. And he said this before, it's all tongue-in-cheek. And of course, Triple H will respond saying, "Hey, it's not too late." Can you imagine Daniel Cormier legit making a deal with WWE? And, he's an established fighter. He's put a lot of doubters to rest. I mean, if he wasn't already a made man, he'd definitely proven otherwise after defeating Stipe Miocic for the UFC heavyweight title, which Cormier was the underdog last time I checked. And yeah, even at that time, there were discussions that Lesnar would take on the winner at a later UFC pay-per-view event. None of that happened. Of course, Cormier is right of WWE taking Brock away, even though Lesnar would announce his retirement again from MMA. We'll never know. We'll just never know. But can Cormier even keep up? I mean, chances are he probably won't have a similar deal like Ronda Rousey did. And if they want to treat him as an attraction, which I think they should, offer him a part-time deal, but still do full-time work, if that makes sense to everyone. But it'll be interesting. But unfortunately, I have no interest of Cormier appearing anytime soon in the WWE. He's still yet to officially retire from MMA first, which has been delayed a couple of times now. But he's going to have his rematch versus Stipe Miocic for the UFC World Heavyweight title. Cormier was originally supposed to retire back in March of this year. So, again, a lot of stops and starts, a lot of delays. Other unseen retirements take place instead. So I guess UFC had to compromise and probably taught Cormier to stick around a little bit while longer because he was scheduled to defend his title at least one more time, and that one more time is going to be coming soon, I believe in September. So, yeah, it's faster than you think. So according to PW Insider and the Wrestling Observer, Alexa Bliss has been dealing with some, quote, sinus issues. And this was the reason given as to why she was not on Raw or SmackDown this week, because of this illness. Bliss was originally scheduled to appear at the Connor's Cure fundraiser presented in conjunction with California Pizza Kitchen in Wayne, New Jersey at the Willowbrook Mall. However, despite reports to the contrary, Bliss did not make an appearance on Raw or SmackDown and was replaced, in a sense, by Nikki Cross at these events. And they stuck this little fact in here as well. The Observer and PW Insider. Braun Strowman also was replaced at the same event by Baron Corbin, the event regarding to Connor's Cure's fundraiser. Was it to sell a legit injury? Was it to sell the kayfabe injury from last week? But Strowman is scheduled, and I'll have the lineup in here in a few for Extreme Rules against Bobby Lashley. Ken Shamrock has announced that he will launch a new boxing promotion that's going to be bare knuckle, called the Valor Bare Knuckle. So Shamrock is going to be running the VBK. And its first event will be held on September 21st from the Bears Casino in North Dakota. Neither Shamrock or the promotion have announced any fights for the card. However, UFC Hall of Famer Mark Coleman took to his Facebook page to suggest he will be fighting at the inaugural card, saying, "Ken and I are finally going to share the ring. I will no longer have to answer if I fought the great Ken Shamrock. Good luck, my friend." Yeah, well, if this is on pay-per-view, I'll give it a look-see and have a better idea what this promotion is all about. Well, an update on the WWE Global Headquarters. It has been in motion since back in late March. Now, according to PW Insider, things are starting to progress even further, as the WWE logo has been officially attached to the brand new building at 677 Washington Boulevard. The move is believed to be completed by 2021, with new office space featuring a 712 square foot per floor building. This will end WWE's spell in the famous Titan Towers building, which dates all the way back to 1985, with the lease at the new building beginning set at 16 and a half years, with possibly a 5-year renewal after that period. So they are moving forward, finally. Bit of a setback. Of course, none of this should be affecting what's going on television, but it is what it is. Anthem Media has filed motion this week asking for an extension through July 17th to respond to the remainder of the most recent version of Jeff Jarrett and Global Wrestling Entertainment's lawsuit against them. It's been reported that Impact has been working on a potential new logo design for when they secure a new TV deal. Impact Wrestling will team with Dave Marquez's Championship Wrestling from Hollywood for a live Twitch special on Saturday, August 3rd in Los Angeles at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So there you go. There's a bit of Impact / Global Wrestling news, which I don't do much here. Triple H and Batista would have a different meeting of sorts, only this time it was for Dave Batista's new film, Stuber, in Los Angeles this past Thursday night. Triple H appeared on a red carpet. There is an interesting full circle here. Batista, who was slated to star in a WWE Studios film called Blood Brothers, but since the film would have been released after Dave Batista's WWE deal at the time would have expired and he wasn't signing a new deal, So Batista was yanked from the film and replaced by Triple H. I mean, did Batista have to be under contract with WWE to be involved in a WWE Studios film? Just saying. So now we get down to the nitty-gritty for this weekend's events. The WWE Network will stream Evolve's 10th anniversary show from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And the lineup is as follows. For the NXT Championship, Adam Cole will defend against Akira Tozawa. Interesting. Should be a good match. Evolve champion Austin Theory will take on WWE champion JD Drake in a title-for-title match. For the Evolve Tag Team Championships, Eddie Kingston and Joe Gacy versus AR Fox and Leon Ruff. Matt Riddle will take on Drew Gulak, the Cruiserweight Champion. As of right now, it is a non-title match. More than likely will be a non-title match. But you have a little bit of Worlds Collide here as NXT goes against 205 Live. Anthony Henry will take on Arturo Ruas. Babatuni will take on Kobe Carino. In a fatal four-way, Kurt Stallone versus Sean Maluda versus Steppenwolf versus Harlem Bravado. Josh Briggs goes one-on-one with Anthony Green. And Brandy Lauren will take on Shotiz Blackheart. So that is your Evolve rundown. This is, well, essentially going head-to-head with AEW's Fight for the Fallen, taking place in Jacksonville, Florida, at the Daily's Place. AEW has stated that all the event's proceeds will be donated to the victims of gun violence. And when I first heard this, I thought it was a very noble gesture for them to do. It's not about AEW's rising star. You know, it's about giving back, and in a sense to put their arms around those who were affected by gun violence. For those who have lost anyone to gun violence, it's a very sensitive and an emotional subject to bring up, but unfortunately, it's part of everyday life. And I applaud AEW or to anyone who came up with this particular idea, and in a sense to give back and say, hey, you're not alone in your struggle. Many of us do deal with all types of violence at some point in our lives, and though it may end differently, those who are still here remember those that are gone. So here's your lineup for AEW's Fight for the Fallen. Brandy Rose goes one-on-one with Ali. Kenny Omega will take on Sema. Cody and Dustin Rhodes team up to take on the Young Bucks. Adam Page versus Kip Sabian. SoCal Uncensored versus the Lucha Brothers. The Dark Order versus Angelico and Jack Evans versus Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus in a three-way tag team match. Britt Baker and Riho versus Brea Priestley and Shoko Nakajima in a tag team match. And of course, we do have a pre-show in a six-man tag team match. Jimmy Havoc will team up with Darby Allin and Joey Janela, taking on MJF, Sammy Guevara, and Shawn Spears. Also in a one-on-one match, Sonny Kiss versus Peter Avalon. So that is your rundown for AEW's Fight for the Fallen. So essentially, you got two streaming events. One of them will more than likely be available on demand after the show. I want to say the same for AEW show, but I don't follow or part of any of their streaming services. And unless it's offered on pay-per-view, I won't be able to watch the event, but I'll ask around to see if anyone does have a particular streaming service, whether it's Fight TV or not Axe TV. I can't think of these names right now. But whichever streaming service, Fightful, would Fightful offer it? Someone help me. But I'll do my best to watch and then cover the show with the results next week on the JM Report. But of course, this report will not be complete without covering this weekend full of wrestling events, ending with WWE Extreme Rules. So I'll just quickly run on their lineup as on paper. There's no comparison because of the dull storylines, and I'll leave it at that. So in no particular order, in a now no-holds-barred match, The Undertaker and Roman Reigns will take on Shane McMahon and Drew McIntyre. Universal Champion Seth Rollins teams up with Raw Women's Champion Becky Lynch to take on Baron Corbin and Lacey Evans, where winners, I just got to stress that, winners take all in a mixed tag team Extreme Rules match. There's a tongue twister for you. WWE Champion Kofi Kingston defends against Samoa Joe in a now 2-on-1 handicap match for the SmackDown Women's Championship. Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross will take on Bayley. SmackDown Tag Team Champions Daniel Bryan and Rowan will defend against Big E and Xavier Woods of the New Day and Heavy Machinery of Tucker and Otis in a triple threat match. Of course, these things don't have any countouts or disqualifications, so those are your Extreme Rules. Ricochet will defend the United States title against AJ Styles. For the Cruiserweight Championship, Drew Gulak versus Tony Nese. Oh, well, at least Tony Nese gets his rematch. Braun Strowman and Bobby Lashley will go at it in a last man standing match. For the Raw Tag Team Championships, The Revival take on the Usos, and Aleister Black will take on Cesaro. Well, as of right now, none of these matches have been confirmed for the pre-show. Wouldn't surprise me if one of the tag team titles will be regulated there, and maybe even the Cruiserweight title. Who knows? But I think the Cruiserweight title, ever since its performance of Stomping Grounds, has earned their keep on the main card. But of course, cards are subject to change. Well, I'm happy to say that I do have another episode of Talking with JM coming up this weekend. So be sure to be on the lookout for that, as this time I'll be sitting down and having a chat with one of the original Glow Girls, Envy, as part of the tag team Soul Patrol. She'll join me, and we'll get to know each other a little bit and find out what she's been up to and her thoughts of the Netflix series Glow, which debuts its third season on August 9th. And unfortunately, I have to end the show with yet another sad news, as the longtime owner and promoter of CMLL, promotion out of Mexico, Francisco Paco Alfonso, has passed away last Saturday. He took over the reins of his uncle, Salvador Chavo, back when it was still called EMLL, and had a huge influence on his popularity of the company by utilizing such stars as Conan, making him the first champion under the new renamed CMLL company. Alfonso was managing broker relationships with other worldwide promotions, including New Japan Pro Wrestling, Ring of Honor, and AAA, just to name a few. No word on cause of death, but he was surrounded by family and loved ones during his passing. Even Chris Jericho put out a emotional video paying tribute to Alonso, stating that he was the man who gave him his first shot, his first big break in wrestling, and even bestowed the name Corazón de León, Lionheart, the moniker that Jericho would carry to ECW and WCW for a while. And since then, we've had a few moments of cameos, if you would, by the name of Lionheart Chris Jericho, most recently at Double or Nothing in AEW. So my thoughts and prayers and condolences go out to the family and friends of this gentleman, Francisco Paco Alonso. Another great legend gone, but definitely will not be forgotten. Hope everyone enjoys their rest of the weekend. We are in the early stages of hurricane season, especially out here in the South. So everyone within the sound of my voice, be good, behave, and until next time, it's good old J out.
Open my eyes, leave it all behind. So open your